All right, everyone. Tonight, what we're going to be doing is over the past few months, I have been talking a lot about kind of where we're going and what we're doing. And so, what I decided was um, to actually put it down. And so, I did this PowerPoint with the intention of demonstrating kind of where we're going, where we're at. Since we're close to the end of the conference year, we're moving into the next conference year. I figured this would be a great time to really explore kind of where we at, where we're, and then where we're going. Okay, we're gonna be doing this is more a presentation than it is kind of a Bible study for. But I also think it's important in the sense that it's going to give us some guidelines and kind of help those of us to hear and see kind of where we're at, where we're going, what we plan on doing. All right. So I kind of mentioned this on Tuesday that I was going to spend today doing some vision casting. And so this is it. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Somebody read this quote for me.
Complacency is the enemy of progress.
All right. So one thing you have to understand is that we can never get complacent that we've made it. And a lot of times what ends up happening is once things start to get slightly better or once things start to progress, the first thing we say is, oh, we're getting better, we're doing good. No, we should always be looking at how we can improve, how we can move better and do and better accomplish what the Lord has for us. All right. So here's our overview of what we're going to be looking at tonight. We're going to re-walk through the vision. We're going to look at the mission statement again. We're going to talk about where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. All right. Vision. Somebody read the vision for us.
The vision of St.
Mark, EME Zion Church is to grow in our love for God while demonstrating and delivering the gospel to others.
All
and
right.
There's a scripture, John 13:34.
All right. Somebody have John 13:34 for us.
A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another.
All right. One of the biggest things that we have to remember is as Christians, as the church, our job is to love one another as God has loved us. So that means we have to love. So we should constantly be trying to grow with our love for God and then taking that love that God has demonstrated to us and demonstrate that to others. We're going to look at this a little more in depth. All right. We need to learn we need to grow in God's love. We do that by learning and serving, learning more about God and serving God. That's how we grow in his love. Demonstrating and delivering. We have to live the gospel. We have to understand the good news. We have to live out the good news. Okay. And take what we have, and we have to take the gospel that we have living and learning and give it to others who do not know Christ. The gospel is the life-changing and saving power of Jesus Christ. All right. We are called, all of us are called to spread the gospel. It's not just on the preachers, all of us. And I like this I like this quote from, I think it's from St. Francis of Assisi. And it goes something to the extent of preach the gospel at all times. And when necessary, use words. In other words, our lives should be demonstrating the gospel at all times. And like I said, if necessary, use words. And so we need to be willing to take this life-changing, saving power of Christ and give it to others. All right, our mission. Somebody read the mission statement for us.
The mission of St. Mark is to expand God's kingdom by being a mother church. We will equip, empower, and employ disciples to birth multiple congregations throughout the region.
All right, let's break that down. Okay, expand the kingdom. The kingdom of God is the invisible but visible church of all believers. All of us who are part of the church are a part of the kingdom in God. And so the local church is a part of the kingdom of God, but also those of us who are called out believers are a part of the kingdom of God. The Great Commission calls us to make disciples of all nations. We all know Matthew 28. Mother church. What I mean by that is a congregation that births other congregations. All right. And we'll get a little more in depth about that a little later, but just keep that in mind. A congregation that births other congregations. Equip. Provide people with the tools, skills, and abilities to demonstrate and deliver the gospel. Empower. To produce people and to promote people into taking charge of their personal walk and ministry. One of the things that I think we sometimes, these are, and then employ, provide people opportunities to use their gifts to serve the kingdom of God. All right. Equip, empower, and employ is important in the church because we have to remember we're supposed to equip people, give them the tools they need in order to do what God has called them to do. Empower, encourage people to start taking responsibility for their stuff, whether it be their position that they're in or whether it is taking responsibility for their own growth and personal development. And then employ, finding ways to use people's talents in order to help grow the kingdom. Disciples are literally followers of Jesus Christ. When we're talking about disciples, we're talking about people who are followers of Jesus Christ. Multiple congregations. I want us to look at this a little differently. When we think of congregations, kind of in the general sense, we think about like other churches, which could be true. But we're looking at expanded ministries, expanded locations, and expanded affiliations. And here's what I mean by that. Expanded ministries, meaning if we decide to, I talked to somebody this week that has a coffee shop, a part of their church that's like connected to their church. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but that would be an expanded ministry, expanded locations. We need to be looking at how we can broaden our reach into the community, and then expanded affiliations. We don't have to do everything ourselves. We need to be willing to work together with other people in order to accomplish what God has to us accomplish. And throughout the region I'm referring to is the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. All right, where we are. I did this section kind of like that Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Okay.
Thank you.
What's up, Roger?
Thank you.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, I got you a pie. How?
You got
Hi.
what?
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, the good. These are, so what we're talking about, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're talking about the things that we have that are going well, some things that some things that we can tighten up, and some other stuff we've severely got to work on. Okay, the good. First thing I'll say is our building. Having a building that we have full access to and that is paid off is definitely a good thing. Good key leaders. We have people that are in place that can help impact, that are doing their job and impacting the ministry. Ministers on board, having other people to help preach and teach is definitely is a good thing. The building's paid off. Not having to have a mortgage per se to worry about. Sometimes, some congregations are paying thousands of dollars a month just to, have a building. Location. We get plenty of traffic where we are, plenty of traffic comes down Illinois. We get traffic coming from Keys. And then longevity in the community. Land. We have a lot of property to work with. And then longevity in the community. The church has been around, close to 60 years now. So that's a good thing because some churches don't make it a year and a half. All right, the bad. One of the things that's challenging for us is we have an aging facility. When you have a building, no matter how old it is, you got to do maintenance. Maintenance sometimes gets expensive on older buildings, right? If you have a pipe bust or anything like that, maintenance is one of those other things. More signage. Unless you know about this church, I would say it's hard to, if you didn't know this church was here, if you're using the GPS, sometimes it's hard to recognize it until you get right up on it. So some more signage would be better, lack of community exposure, meaning everybody in the neighborhood should know where St. Mark is. And that's something we can definitely need to work on. The parking lot is something we've already been addressing. The ugly. And what I mean by the ugly is not saying this is like end of the world, but these are some areas that we really, really need to be pushing on forward. No young adults and young families. We have to work at getting younger. No young children. We do have some, but we need to expand that. No emerging leaders. And here's what I mean. At this point, we don't have the leaders who are in place are doing a great job, but the challenge is, do we have people who can those leaders can pass the baton to, if say they got sick or they had to move or something like that. You have to start planning your contingency plan. Everyone in leadership should also be training their replacement, because we don't know what can happen. Life could happen. We might have to move or anything. And so that's something that's important. So who are we grooming up to take over leadership in the church is the question. No evangelistic ministries or service. Now we're working on that. But at this point in time, we don't have any steady evangelistic things going on right now. No succession plan for current leaders. As I spoke to earlier, we need to be working on a succession plan, meaning not saying that we're trying to move anybody out of their position, but if say something happens to in the Army, used to have this saying, next man up, right? If somebody goes down, who's the person that's going to take up after them? And you got to already start. And so reason why you focus on that is because when you develop the next generation of leaders, what you're doing is building on your legacy. One of the challenges we have in churches are we care so much about our history, but we don't focus in on our legacy. And here's what I mean. History is all the stuff we've done in the past. Legacy is what we're passing on to go forward. So we have to be worried about our legacy. All right, where we're going. All right, tilling the ground. What I've been focused on this conference year for the most part is what I'm considering tilling the ground. Doing a lot of preaching and teaching on what makes healthy congregations, preaching and teaching on evangelist and discipleship strategy. We're going to be moving into that here soon, working on becoming more involved in the community, looking to recruit and employ new leaders, and working to build overall building upkeep. These are some things that we currently are working on, or some things that we got bubbling up in the future. Preaching and teaching on healthy congregations. The lack of growth and new members speaks to the congregation not as healthy as it needs to be. What we need is between 20 and 50 new members. Preaching and teaching over the last few months has been focused on making the congregation healthy. The focus is to make the congregations healthy, and healthy things grow naturally. So a lot of times we want this dramatic growth, right? We start off with 12 and we end up with 200 by the end of the year. Not all growth is good. We want to develop healthy growth where we're growing and we're bringing other people along with us. And so we're not just expanding and going to pop, but growing up leaders, growing up the next generation, and doing it in a more healthy and long-lasting way. Okay. The current and subsequent series will be focused on church health, spiritual growth, and evangelism. Spiritual growth, all of us need to be mindful that we are called to grow spiritually. I've seen a tremendous amount of growth amongst a lot of us over this past conference year, but we can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue trying to grow spiritually, because as we grow and mature as disciples, we can go and help others. Okay. And then we need to be, and then we're talking about spiritual growth, church health, and evangelism. One of the things that we do not, I think it's across the board in Zion. This is not a St. Mark issue. I think it sometimes might be systemic of us. We tend to focus on maintenance and money. That tends to be our thought process. What we care about, what we focus on is maintenance and money, making sure that we maintain what we got, whether it's the building, the people, the ministries, whatever, and money. How are we going to make sure we have enough money to pay the lights, the waters? And that's not anything wrong with that. But we need to kind of shift our mindset from maintenance and money to ministry and mission. Because when we're doing ministry and we're on mission for God, we don't have to worry about the other stuff, right? Think about it. if we added 20 to 50 new people in this church between this time this year and this time next year, let me tell you one thing we wouldn't have to, I mean, we train them up, teach them how to, teach them to contribute, and they became tithers. Even if half of them became tithers, that would increase our financial footprint way more than it would if we just worry about trying to keep and maintain the twos and fews we have. There's nothing wrong with the people we have now, but you got to remember, Jesus called us to make disciples. So as we're discipling people and bringing them in, we're helping to grow the church naturally, and natural growth is what we're after. Okay. The current and subsequent series, okay, we talked about that. We need to become more mature. We need to become a more mature church spiritually. And here's what I mean by that. This is all of us are on the process of growth. We as Methodists, John Wesley talked a lot about perfection and perfecting. All of us have to be in that mindset of how can I grow? You should be able to look at yourself between this annual conference and last annual conference and show ways that you have grown and matured. You can use annual conference, you use your birthday, whatever it is, but you should be looking at, am I growing? Am I maturing? Are there things that I'm doing better now than I was last year? And it's a process, right? We have to remember that we're trying to grow, and it's a process. Many of the members, and then just from this year, from talking to people and questioning stuff, it does not seem a lot of us have good and healthy spiritual practices. Spiritual practices, prayer, fasting, reading our word, and things of that nature. It's not saying that these things are, let me say this. These are some things all of us can improve on. I could read my Bible more. I could pray more, right? And so we want to encourage our members to start learning the word for themselves, not just waiting for Sunday school for one of the preachers to regurgitate or whatever. Learning the word for yourself, wrestling with it for yourself. There's so many tools out now that we didn't have back in the day that can help you really understand the word. Okay. Must become a priesthood of all believers, not just the minister. And here's what I mean. When somebody has an issue spiritually, we shouldn't just go run to, say, Reverend Parrish or Reverend Rako with the issue. We believe in the priesthood of all believers. All of us can pray for somebody, maybe not necessarily preach, but all of us can pray. All of us can use our ear to listen to someone's concern and be with them and kind of walk them through this. We have to start thinking about, we are a part of this missionary journey with these people, and God might be using you to win that person over. And so when it comes to ministry, it's not pointing to the preachers. All of us are a part of the ministry. All right, preaching and teaching, evangelism and discipleship. The church state is a byproduct of lack of intentional evangelism. And here's what I mean. There's people who have been evangelizing. We have evangelism board, but we as a church do have, and we're working on it, need to develop a evangelistic strategy. And I want you to know, I did this PowerPoint slide about 2 weeks ago. So some of this stuff we're actually in the process of working on without me, without having a conversation. And here's how we know we have not been intentionally evangelizing. We have not done a new or adult baptism in a while. When you're reaching new people, baptisms, that's why you always see them on this quarterly conference report. Baptisms is a sign of reaching unchurched and lost people. We generally tend to see a lot of our growth from transfer from other denominations or even amongst our own denomination. But we have to get to the point where we are at least, we should be baptizing somebody once a quarter, bringing in somebody new who needs to know the word of God. Okay. Increase our membership from the neighborhood. We do have a lot of people who commute, and we're not against our commuters, but there's a plethora of apartment complexes around here. It's a plethora of people around here. I think they said the population in just 75216 is somewhere around 60,000 people. So there's plenty of our neighbors in this neighborhood who really need to know the gospel, and we need to do a better job of reaching out to them and evangelizing here locally. I think that'll be to our greater good. All right. There's no proper evangelistic strategy, nor is there proper discipleship strategy. And here's what I mean. We not only do we got to know how to go out and get them. One of the things that we don't do a great job of, and I'm speaking for myself, I was properly, somebody reached out, invited me, and things of that nature. But where I felt like my church didn't do a great job was in discipleship. We need to train people from where they are to get them to be mature in this thing. And a lot of times it ends up falling through the gaps. We just tell people, keep coming to church, but we have to have a solid discipleship strategy along with our evangelism strategy, meaning it's like, we got to go catch the fish, right? Then we got to go process it. If those of you are fishermen, if I said, hey, come by my house, I'm gonna make you some fish, and you come by and I just drop a dead fish on your plate, I haven't scaled it, I haven't gutted it, if I didn't pull out none of the bones, I just dropped you a raw, still flopping piece of fish. You looking at me like, sir, you didn't process this? What needs to happen is, as we bring in new people, we have to disciple them. We have to teach them how to grow. And that takes time and patience, but this is something we have to start doing now to set ourselves up for the future. We talked about that. We're currently well at taking in church people, but we got to start working on how do we reach the unchurched. One of the things we're noticing in research and studying, we're seeing a lot more people who don't have a church background. They didn't come up in the church. They don't have a church understanding. And so we have to start understanding that we have to bring people in who may not understand how church works. They don't know you're supposed to stand at this point, sit at that point. We have to go out and try to reach the unchurched, which is the people who have no idea about church, and the de-church, people who just threw their hands up and said, you know what, I'm done with this. But there's a lot of those people out there who need to know the gospel. The class system needs to be overhauled, revamped with new leaders and a new vision. And here's what I mean. I'm not talking about you can be the same leader, but just new mindset, new way of thinking. You get what I'm saying? And so we do, and we also need some new leaders to come up in this. And what I mean by revolving the class system, we have treated the class system as we've treated the class leaders and the class system as a way of collecting money. And that is not its intention. The intention of the class system, if you read Wesley and things of that nature, when you go to the class, you're supposed to be able to, the question is going to be asked, how fair is your soul? What is something that you've improved on? What are some things that you fallen short on? It's supposed to be an accountability system to help us grow. This is why Methodism took off as it did. If you look around the country, almost every major church, big churches, I'm pretty sure they got at Tony Evans Church. You probably go over to Friendship West, you'll see it. You can go see TD Jakes, Joel Osteen, all of them. I know Elevation has a beautiful one. They work there. So when you have that many people, like say TD Jakes has, he cannot meet with every one of these people. They use their small group system. The small group system is Methodist, but people have taken it, remixed it, call it something else, but it's still Methodist doctrine. This is how John Wesley was able to grow this thing from a band of people into a movement, was because we took the class leader system. And so we have to get back to our roots in that area as far as the class leaders. Class leaders, according to the discipline, you read the discipline for yourself and see, are called sub-pastors, which means the class leaders need to be knowing what's going on in their class, checking in on them, tending to them, shepherding them. Now, I know we don't like hearing that word because we think that only applies to the pastor, but you can have shepherding skills and abilities and not necessarily be a pastor. You get what I'm saying? You can have that gift of shepherding, and we need to make sure that we are taking care of people, because as we begin to grow and integrate new people, the class system is going to be the way that they come into the church and begin to mature and disciple them. Right? When we're having the class meeting, holding the people accountable, pushing them to go to be at Bible study and be at Sunday school, pushing them to be more involved in serving at the church. This is how we're going to grow up that next generation of leaders, which are going to take us to where we need to go. But the one thing I want to move from is from our general class leader system to what a cell group model and an affinity group model. Here's what I mean. Cell groups are like classes, but their purpose, like the person who's in charge of it, is really focused on trying to grow spiritually the people in that group, right? They so give you an example. A cell group is connected to the church, but say, hey, every Thursday we're going to meet at Starbucks. We're talking post-pandemic. We're going to meet at Starbucks, and we're going to have Bible study there, have a cup of coffee, have some word. When you do that, now you make it open to somebody to say, hey, I see you guys here every Thursday. What's going on? Oh, we're a part of St. Mark AME Zion Church. Oh, okay. Can I come and study the word with you? Please. That's why we leave this open chair for anybody who wants to come in. And so people might be more willing to come and sit in on a Bible study at a coffee shop compared to coming into the church. The church to an unchurched person or even a de-churched person might be a bit intimidating, but this is the way we're going to be able to bring them in, be able to disciple them and grow them and help them become what God wants them to become. So, and then affinity groups, is a good way to bring in a lot of young people, because you start groups based on common things. So let's just say there's a group of people who have an affinity to knitting, right? You can have a knitting circle and invite people in and, begin to grow that way. Also, let's just say somebody loves video games. That could be an affinity group. We have to expand and look at this thing a different way, and not just sticking people together just because, well, you old, they old, let's put y'all together. No, let's be strategic and see, why are we putting folks together? Why are we doing things this way? And a lot of this is just having a different mindset than what we've been having as far as our usual operations. Okay, lack of community presence. We are known in the community. I don't feel like we're known in the community to too many people besides our current membership. Bishop what's his name? Bishop Dennis Vernon Proctor used to say, if your church closed tomorrow, who would care besides the members there? In other words, we need to be the one-stop shop in this community for anything the community needs. Food, clothing, jobs, because that's the way the church is supposed to operate. When we begin to serve people, that tends to help us gain visibility and notoriety in the community. We're not easily recognizable by drivers, and here's what I mean. Unless you're coming to St. Mark, for the most part, you don't notice it until you get right up on it. And we need to find ways to be increase our visibility to the drivers. We have no ministries, I feel like, to serve the community. Now we're working on it. We're getting our food lab going, our computer lab going. We're working on our food pantry. We're having some stuff where we're making moves, but we need to get those things going to increase our draw. And we have to switch from thinking about doing stuff just to bring people in the church, and doing stuff because we need to serve the kingdom, because that's what we're called to do. When we begin to switch our mindset from, oh, we just need to bring people in so they can help us pay these claims, to, I want to serve the community to glorify God. And I know some of us have this mindset, but we need to all have that same mindset. I'm serving to glorify God. God honors that. And we'll begin to start to see people come and be involved. And then you never know how he's going to bless us. More community events, just to get to know our neighbors, just to get to know them, just to spend time with them, just to increase our visibility here in the community. New leaders. We need to find new leaders, both lay and clergy. And here's what I mean. One of the things that I notice in Zion, sometimes we don't applaud and push our lay leadership enough. And lay leaders really are the ones who drive the local church for the most part. When you have good, solid lay leaders, that's what takes the church, especially in the Methodist, especially the AME Zion Church, to a whole nother level. And so we need to start identifying, grooming, and empowering lay leadership. And clergy. As we begin to move and expand, I'm hoping and praying God is going to add to our clergy roles, and that's fine. And that's beautiful also. We want to see that growth on both the lay side as far as leadership and clergy side. The congregation needs to be more involved with the life of the church. And here's what I mean. This church is way too reliant upon, I won't make a decision until somebody else does it. If we're going to grow, leaders are going to have to lead. It can't always be, well, I'm gonna wait till I talk to X. If you're in charge of the trustees, there's a trustee issue, and I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not picking at you, Sister Ray. Please don't think that. But if there's an issue, that leader needs to be able to take control of that and handle it. Because as you begin to grow and expand, I personally won't have time to be over every last little detail. What we're going to need is for our lay leaders and our clergy leaders to be able to handle these things and to help push everything forward. Imagine this. We're trying to push a car uphill, right? What's easier? If I and maybe two other people are behind the car pushing, and we're a car full of 6 people. It's me and one other person trying to push the car up the hill. Or if all 6 of us got out the car and pushed the our uphill. It's going to be a lot easier when all 6 of us are working together on one accord. And a lot of that comes with just time and getting to know each other and knowing what, where our boundaries and stuff are. But we do need to get to the point where the people are more involved with the life of the church. most churches, 20% of the people do all the work. And this is how you end up with people getting burned out. This is how you end up with people falling to the wayside. And even if you can't do a lot, just do something. Whatever your something is helpful, right? If you say, hey, Reverend Williams, I can't come up here and, I can't serve on everything, but I can come up here once a week and water the flowers for you. I'm pretty sure he would appreciate that, right? Hey, I can't do a lot, but I got my little grabber. I can go out in the church and pick up trash. I'm pretty sure the trustees would appreciate that. You see what I'm saying? We have to all take ownership in the church, taking on the responsibility of church growth. Church growth is the responsibility of everyone. And here's what I mean, both, because as we grow spiritually, as we become disciples and we make other disciples, we'll see growth in the church. We'll see the church begin to grow and expand in the ways that we would want it to. Find new lifeblood and allow them to use their gifts and graces and make mistakes. In other words, we need to find new people. And when new people come in, allow them, if they have gifts and talents, to use their gifts and talents. In some churches, you have people say, oh, well, they ain't been here long enough to do this and do that. But if they have the gifts and graces to do it, then we need to allow them to do it, allow them to, and then also give them the grace to make mistakes. New people are going to make mistakes. They don't know all the proper rules and protocols. We shouldn't bite their head off because things didn't go the way we think they should go. If there's a mistake being made, okay, what was the mistake? Okay, now how can we improve and go and move forward together? All right. Building upkeep. We actually need to upgrade this entire building. And now I ain't saying all that has to be done today, but we need to be mindful of sometimes when you're in the church and you're serving and you've been there for a while, you overlook stuff, right? I coming out of my office all the time. And I've gotten to the point now where I overlook that coffee stain that's in front of the door, right? I don't even see it anymore. But that's because I've walked past it every day almost, right? So I've gotten to the point where I don't even notice it until I think I didn't notice it again until Sister Ray said, just like somebody spilled that coffee in front of your door. And I'm like, what coffee? Oh, yeah. Because I interact with it all the time, I overlook it. I get comfortable and complacent with it. One thing we have to understand is when we get visitors and new people, they're going to be looking at it with fresh eyes. And so we have to be mindful when we're looking at the church, how we're growing and what we're doing. We have to look at it from the eyes of a new member. What will they see? How they interact with stuff? And so we need to look at upgrading all our bathrooms. Definitely look at upgrading the parking lot. No, we're working on that. Flooring in the entire church and lighting. It wouldn't hurt for this church to be a little brighter, because a little brighter. And so that's some things we need to look at. How are we going to get there? Number one, we need to take ownership. Every member needs to take ownership in the life of the church, working on growing personally and working on expanding their ministries and outreach. So here's what I mean by expanding their ministries and outreach. All of us have a ministry, and we can use that. And so figure out how we can use our gifts and talents to help glorify the kingdom and help to expand the church. For example, let's just say I am good at baking, right? I'm not per se, but let's just say I'm good at baking. How can I use my gift in baking to help out the church? Hey, we can have pies in the park. And so we come, I bake up a bunch of pies, we cut them in half. Hey, how you doing? I'm from the church around the corner, St. Mark. I just want to give you a slice of pie. God bless you. Hey, if you want to stop by on Sunday, we would love to see you. That's not even something that takes a lot of work. You could almost do it yourself. I mean, but it'd be better if you invite some other people to help you in the process. But you get what I'm saying? We all have to take ownership in church growth and expansion and work on our own personal ministries, even if and sometimes your personal ministry might be, you know what, Pastor, I'm going to commit every day at between 2 and 3 to pray for the church. Even that's helpful, right? Even if you can't physically do something, prayer helps. Being a good ear and a listener helps. Being an encourager helps. Figure out what your ministry is and figure out how you can use that to help expand the church. Become more outwardly focused. We need to focus on the needs of the community and less about our own wants and needs. And here's what I mean. In a lot of churches, we tend to focus on making sure the members in the church are happy, right? This goes back to our maintenance and money thing. How you doing? We want to cater to the people who are already here. And so the challenge with that is what happens if that person moves away, or what happens if that person can no longer participate like they used to? Then what do we do? One church I was at, they were really adamant about, oh, we need to take care of our seniors. We need to take care of our seniors because, they pay all the bills. We need to take care of our seniors. And I said, well, what happens when the Lord begins to start calling them home? Because a lot of these people in this particular church, we had 5 or 6 people who were at least 90 years old. So what do we do when God calls them home? Right? I remember one Sunday, I had like some of the new members stand up and ask some of the older members, who's that? They didn't even know the people's name, and they had been in the church for 5 or 6 months serving. And so we have to get out of our mindset of only worrying about ourselves. And what are the needs of this community? What are some ways that we can help? What are some ways that we can be involved? Maybe what are some ways we can get involved with the local elementary school? What are some ways that we can get involved with some of these apartment complexes, senior living homes? What are some ways we can get involved? And I know we say, oh, well, that's, it's too much. Well, let's find one thing and focus on it. Maybe we say next year, hey, we're going to take ownership of the school. And we're going to figure out ways to help serve the school, help serve the teachers and the students. Just find one thing. And I promise you, as you begin to start to serve the community, Lord will begin to send resources in human resources as far as people goes, and he'll start beginning to send resources as far as money. Okay. We need to focus more on mission and less of being a country club. And here's what I mean. A lot of churches, not saying us completely, but a lot of churches, they treat the church like a country club. I paid my dues. I get to do X, Y, and Z. I pay my claims, so I get to say this, or I pay my claims, I get to do X, Y, and Z. That is not how the church is supposed to operate. And this is why, and I'm saying this now, we need to move away from stressing people about claims and focus more on teaching people about tithes and offerings. If we teach people how to tithe and give their offerings as they're supposed to, as the Lord commands and mandates, we won't have to worry and bring in new people. We won't have to worry about claims. We'll be able to make the monies we need to make and cover everything we need to cover. So we need to get out of the mind. We need to start changing our mindset of how we focus and do business. Because when people pay claims, in some situations, I've heard people say, well, I pay my claims, I get to do what I want. Because they have that country club mentality. If you go to a country club, once you pay your dues, you can enjoy all the amenities that the country club has to offer, right? And so we got to get out of that mindset and be more of a ministry mindset. Discipleship, becoming actual disciples of Christ and not spectators. One of the things that many of our churches fall short at, and like I said, a lot of this stuff I'm talking about is in general. It involves us, but we need to be disciples of Christ and not spectators. And what I mean by that is spectators, we sit back and watch everybody else serve. We sit back and watch everybody else do, and we ourselves are not involved. We need less spectators and more participators. All right, embrace technology. We've been doing a good job about this. I feel in the year I've been here, we've expanded our technology reach. We see people more viewing online. A lot of y'all don't see the Facebook numbers, but every week we're adding somebody new who's liking the page, meaning when we go live, they'll get notifications and know about it. And that's been awesome. Social media presence, we've been doing a good job about that. We probably need to add some more options. So we're doing a good job in this area, but we still could do better. There's other things we could be doing. I know I was talking to Rayco about maybe doing TikToks. I'm not even into TikTok like that, but I understand the younger people are. And so we have to be willing to do things, even if we're not necessarily comfortable. And I'm not fully comfortable using TikTok just yet. I haven't even made my first one, but using that as a tool to reach people, right? I know there's a bodega, and maybe some of y'all from up north understand this a little better. There's a bodega in New York that's like famous because of TikTok, because whoever it is works there is showing people how they make the dishes in the deli. And they get people coming all over the world to come to this bodega somewhere in New York just because of TikTok. And I'm not saying we're going to do that per se, but we have to be willing to embrace social media and understand that there's a big world out there and we can use it to our advantage. Christ focus more on Christ than traditions, our own wants, and our comfort. And here's what I mean. You don't grow where you're comfortable. And so when God wants you to grow, he takes you into a place of discomfort. I remember when I was younger, I had a lot of knee pain and back pain. And my mom took me to the doctor and I was trying to figure out what's going on. They said it was just growing pains. Growing hurts. Growing is painful. It's a process. And sometimes it don't always feel good. But that's what we need to do. We got to make sure that everything we do is Christ focused. All right. In conclusion, the biggest things we need to do is maybe shift our focus. We got to become more involved. We got to seek the kingdom and walk in his calling and just move forward. We have done a great job this year, St. Mark. And I'm not gonna lie, from where I thought we would be at this point to where we are is actually surpassed where I thought we would actually get to. But I still think there's a lot of improvement that we need to do. And it goes with everything, right? I've been walking for every morning for about a year. And now I realize I need to push myself a little further. Yes, I've been walking 3 or 4 miles, and I can do that now without even being out of breath. So now I'm like, okay, Philmont, you got to get off your duff and start running, because you've plateaued. You've got to a point where you can't go any further. So now you got to figure out, how do I take it to the next level? And that's all in this presentation. That's all I'm pointing out, is ways that we can take what we're already doing that's successful, and how can we push it to the next level? How can we get to be the church that I know that we can be? All right. All right. I think that's it. All right. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I like a couple comments. I like the way you use that 6-person analogy and moving the car, and leaving, everybody get out of the car, and it's so much easier all to go together. And you also mentioned about the aging population of the church. And you see the few numbers that are on here, probably your leaders, ministers. And the 6 of them are trying to push the car, and maybe one that's driving. And then that leaves all the other work undone. And I'm just thinking outside the box, perhaps, in all the things, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Perhaps we focus in on 1 or 2, do them well, instead of trying to do all of it. Because believe me, I think if the trustees pull out their hot lists, hot topics, you'll see the same things.
Yeah. So
they're
there. The intention is not to try to. We're not trying to, what's that old saying? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I'm laying it out here, kind of laying out the buffet. And now I'm saying, all right, where do we start to eat? Where do we start?
Now work the plan.
Yeah. Where do we start to go forward? I felt it necessary, because the other reason why I did kind of this way is these are all the things that I have observed and seen. And then I'm trying to show how my plan to get us from where we are to where we need to be. And listen, none of this stuff is going to happen overnight. This is a long road ahead. Okay. But we're making good strides. I want us to continue making even bigger strides.
There's only one area I want to take issue with, just to take a look at it in a glimpse of soon be a year that you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the last few administrations, there has not been an emphasis on claims. So therefore the people have not been badgered about claims.
Okay.
At all. And matter of fact, we got a call just now during this session. I had to take it, and was one of the class leaders. Sister Cooper had a significant loss, a granddaughter, a great granddaughter, I'm sorry, and a niece. And so one of the class leaders is out ministering and dealing with her. I think they do a really good job of that. But you're right, we need more class leaders. It needs to be revamped. We need to, expand. And then the cell group, I like that. And how the small group discipleship. No, it's not all. We have to work the system. You're right.
Yeah.
I like that. Because I think the last meeting we had in March was the meeting we asked them to check on the people and remind them about their claims. But that's probably the first thing they really heard. And some people's like, we still do that? How much is it? Yeah. Because we haven't been asking.
Well,
we haven't been.
No, I mean, the reason why I brought that up is more of a Zion thing than it is.
Yeah, it is.
Specifically St. Martin thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
You want us to be careful. Don't fall in that trap.
In Zion, we tend to use our class leaders. And if you've been at other churches in Zion, we tend to use our class leaders as bill collectors, for lack of a better word. Not necessarily. So in that instance, I'm speaking more universal than we are very being specific. Because if you go to other churches, the first thing, people see their class leader phone number pop up in their phone, the first thing they do is like, oh, they want some money. And so we need to be mindful of that and get away from that. Brian Thompson, who's more likely going to be one of our next bishops. He has a church in Fayetteville, North Carolina, with about 5,000 people. So of course, with 5,000 people, he's not really worried about claims like that. But he, you know, one of the things he said even when we had, you know, he'd been there like 2 years. He said, when I got there, even when we had 200 people or whatever, that's why we kept pushing for growth. And I kept trying to explain to them, as we grow, we'll have to worry less and less about. I think he said in his conference, he bought every church in his conference whatever they needed to go online once the pandemic hit, because some of them people didn't have the funds to do that. His church owns a strip mall. So you get what I'm saying? So he's thinking that he's doing a lot of stuff outside the box.
Yeah.
And so, but he was in this teaching, and he was talking to a lot of the ministers about shifting your mindset. You know, this is how we always done it. Let's see if there's other ways that we can go and do it.
Yeah, that's good. Good. I know some that even bought them all tablets if they didn't have a smartphone.
Right.
You know, the $39, $49 tablets, so they could access and not be left out because they felt left out. And then some just don't want to, period.
Right.
Yep. But outside the box, doing it different. Great.
Oh yeah, still recording. All right, let me stop the recording.